what's going on, and welcome to Designer Head Podcast. My name is Jan, and I will be your host. This is a podcast where I will be talking about technology, design, intersection between design and technology, and basically using this platform as my brain dump. If you like it, awesome. I really would love for you to follow me and follow my episodes and spread the word. If you don't, well, I'm sorry, but actually I'm not. My podcast, and I'll do with it whatever the hell I want. And so, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the second episode of Designer Head Podcast. So what are we talking about today? Today, we are talking about passion. So passion is something that really guided my career for the last 25 years. So let me tell you about my passion, if you will. So the year is 2000-ish, if I remember correctly, and I am a new immigrant in Canada. I just arrived to Canada after finishing my military service in Israel. I was 20 years old when I came to Canada. My family was already there. And the first year, it was difficult. I had no friends, really. I didn't know anyone. And so the only thing I could do really is, go to work and spend the rest of my free time just sitting online. And then online was, dial-up. 56K modem. For those of you who don't know, just go Google 56K modem right now, or 56K modem sound right now. And for you, it's probably not going to mean anything, but for me, or for my generation, or older generation than me, it actually brings some really interesting memories. Some warm, whimsical, some terrifying. Anyway, I was a new immigrant in Canada, and I just got on the internet for the first time in my life. I'd never been on the internet. I didn't even know it existed before that time. Granted, I had a computer back in the 90s, but I played video games on it and nothing else. I didn't have an internet. I didn't know it existed. At that time, I was kind of figuring out what to do next with my life. I am a former painter. I do hold an associate's degree in graphic design, and I went through art school. And I kind of, I was a little lost, if you will. I was a little lost. And so while I was lost, the only thing I could do is just spend endless hours on the internet. I wasn't doing much, browse websites, but mostly I spent my time in chat forums. And these chat forums were different. But the main one, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, was Mirk, which is MIRC. Honestly, if you want to see where Slack potentially could have stolen their idea for their UI or experience, I'm not saying they did. It's a fascinating correlation between how Slack looks like, or looked like before the latest update they did, and how Mirk used to look like. A main room where everyone in a specific quote-unquote Mirk channel could communicate and interact with each other. Then you had DMs, where you can go and have private chat rooms with the person you want to chat, able to create group chat rooms as well. So the experience itself, the interaction, is awfully similar. So I'm not trying to steer any conspiracy theories right now, but, it's kind of interesting. Anyway, long story short, I was sitting in these chat rooms for a long time. Suddenly, I saw a bunch of people kind of sharing with everyone websites. And they're like, look at my website, look at my website, look at my website. I'm like, what the fuck is a website? And so I started looking at these things and I'm like, okay, hold on a second. They're doing these crazy, interesting, web pages where you just get a URL or some sort of a IP address, and you can just view somebody's page, and they can put there whatever the fuck they want, and they can create it and design it and then draw on it and whatever. And so I got really fascinated with that. And I think I spent about 3 months or 4 months basically trying to download anything and everything I could find on the internet related to HTML, Photoshop. I remember getting a hacked version of Photoshop. I think it was Photoshop 3.1. Don't remember exactly. And I spent the next probably another couple of months tinkering around with Photoshop, poking things, trying things. I don't remember if Photoshop had layers at that time. I think layers came a few versions later. I would say that I spent probably about a year playing around with Photoshop, clip art. Those were fun. HTML. Now, HTML was interesting because back then you didn't necessarily have anything like Dreamweaver or any kind of coding software apart from the C++ or very cumbersome software engineering Microsoft-based, I think, software was. So we used to code in Notepad, straight up hand coding, no assistance, no labels or anything that as you code give you any suggestions and whatnot. Nope. You had to sit down and you had to plan out every single thing you're going to do on the website, and then sit down and make a list of all the things that you will require to do that, such as tables and maybe some parameters, fonts, sizes, and everything else. And then you had to go into Photoshop, design the website, and then slice that website into small pieces because the internet was not as fast to load large visuals. So you might create a visual, put it online, and then somebody else on the other side of the world could be sitting there for 15 fucking minutes downloading that shit, or actually kind of loading it slowly, line by line view. And so slicing your visuals into small chunks or small pieces, and then you reassemble it together in the website, in the web browser, in a table, in a fixed position table, to make sure that it doesn't move or shift. I was building and designing these websites just for myself, just for shits and giggles. I think the first website that I actually fully designed and put online was International Aquarius, I think it was community or organization. I don't remember what exactly I called it, but my zodiac sign is an Aquarius. Not that I really believe in this shit, but back in the day, I did. I was a lot younger. I was in my early 20s. I was very much into mythical things. I was very much into theosophy and philosophy and religions. And so zodiac or astrology and astronomy was a big part of my life. And so I sat down one day and I figured out that I have a lot of friends that I really get along with, and most of them or all of them were Aquariuses. Funny. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. But, thinking back right now, like actually as I'm talking to all of you, it seems like, or it feels like, this is where my nonprofit or philanthropic mindset or personality, I'm not exactly sure how to call it, but I created, I guess, an organization or community that dedicated to Aquariuses. And I put a bunch of shit about us as zodiac sign. And I called upon the Aquarius community around the world, if you will. Obviously, I didn't reach the world. But I called upon all the Aquariuses to kind of make a pledge to support each other in anything and everything, financially, morally, I don't know, mentally, and so forth. That was the time when I think I started developing my love for web design. However, about a year later, or that same year, the dates blurred a little bit. It was that long ago. I got accepted into International Academy of Design and Technology in Toronto, Canada, where I got accepted to a BA program for interior design with some flair of architecture, but mostly interior design. So I got into that because I've kind of always wanted to, or at least I thought I wanted to, for the longest time as I could remember myself, I wanted to be an interior designer. I saw it as almost like a natural progression from being an artist and graphic designer to kind of acquire, if you will, an adult profession with my design skills and my artistic brain. And so I started school. I was in school for, let's see, a year or a year and a half. I keep forgetting. Now, while I was in school, I, as a newly minted or not yet minted immigrant in Canada, I could not obtain a student loan. And so I was in school, considered to be an international student, and I had to pay for everything out of my pocket. I had some savings from the first year of working. And so I paid for the first year out of my pocket, and then I had to figure out what to do with the second one and keep going. The skills of Photoshop and graphic design and painting kind of mixed in my brain, and I had almost like an aha moment, if you will, of hold on a second. Maybe I should try and use that to maybe try and make some money so I can try and pay for school. I can tell you right now, that was an ambitious plan of a 21-year-old. But I think, if you dream, then fucking dream big, right? So I devised a plan. I said to myself that I'm going to try and make this into an income. And the first thing that I started offering to, well, first, obviously, friends and relatives and whatnot, was some basic graphic design service. Business cards, brochures, postcards, flyers, and you name it. Now, was I making any money? Yes, I was. Was I making a lot of money? No, I wasn't. I think I was making maybe $200-300 per business card design, and maybe a few $100 for brochure design, and then the list goes on. So I definitely wasn't making enough to essentially cover a $20 or $20-some thousand tuition a year. I needed to do something more. And so I decided to try and offer websites. And so I did. I started offering websites, and I was designing mostly websites for friends and family for free, just to kind of build out a portfolio. And honestly, I kind of fell in love with it so much, like truly and purely. Like there wasn't any, it started with, well, not necessarily a nefarious plan, but it started with the plan of how can I make more money, not necessarily going and getting a regular job where I have to go somewhere to work somewhere and then go back to school. So I needed to find something that I could essentially do either in the middle of the night or on my breaks at school or on the weekends on my own available time. And so that was kind of a very convenient approach to how do you make money without actually getting a job. Hilarious. So I started doing things while I was still in school because kind of my thought process was I'm going to start building this now. By the time I'm going to get to, a summer break, I will try and elevate this to a much higher place. I'm going to try and pick up more clients. I'm going to try and do more things. So by the time I need to pay my tuition for the following year, I can afford to do that. Now, summer came. At that time, I was already doing some websites here and there and some brochures and whatnot. I already had some regular clients. I wasn't still making a lot. I was barely making, well, not even the ends meet. Like, honestly, I was still living with my parents and I did not make enough. So I decided that, you know what, I'm going to take a sabbatical from school and I am going to build this as a business more. And so I took a sabbatical. And as I like to joke with people is I am still on sabbatical. That was a time when I officially or unofficially dropped out of college to pursue becoming a web designer. I really loved that shit so much. I just wanted to do that. And so obviously I couldn't become a web designer overnight with a snap of my fingers. That's when the reality hit that it will require a lot more time. It requires a lot more skill, a lot more talent, a lot more rigor, abilities, experience, and so forth. And so instead of going back to school and figuring out how to make money other ways, I decided, no, fuck it. I want to be a web designer, period. And I don't give a shit if I'll ever be able to really make a substantial living out of this. I really did not care. I had fights with my parents. I didn't speak to my dad for a while because of that. It was extremely upset at me. His words were, go back to school, get your BA, and then do whatever the fuck you want with your life. For me, though, at that time was, I don't want to waste another 2 years or whatever, 3 years of my life getting a BA in something that I'm pretty certain I'm never going to work in. I might as well start spending or using this time for something that I actually do want to do for the rest of my life. And obviously at the time, I didn't know where it's going to go, what's going to happen. And hilariously, I did not know the history of the .com collapse, right? So back in late 90s, early 2000s, the .com collapse was essentially when Silicon Valley, or if you will, burst. It was almost like a recession level, tech companies crashing down, people losing their jobs. And so I learned later that at the time, people had no idea what's going to be the future of the internet at the time while everything was crashing around it. But, as they say, sometimes ignorance is bliss. I had no fucking idea this was happening or happened. And I just wanted to design websites. That's all I wanted to do. And so I did. I started designing websites, and obviously, you need to make some money. And I started finding some odd jobs. I think my first one was working night shifts at a gas station. I think I worked there for like 7 months or 8 months. Essentially, my entire life was rotating around sleeping. Luckily, when you're young, you can handle that. I was sleeping probably like 4 hours a night, night in 24 hours because I had night shifts. My night shifts were from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I'll go home at 4 and I would sleep until like 8, 9. And then I'll get up, have breakfast, shower and whatnot. And I'll go out and start hustling for clients. And I used to just run around trying to find clients, get clients, meet with people, talk to people, go to different events, networking and whatnot to keep getting clients. As I was getting clients, I was getting projects. I wasn't charging a lot for those projects because I didn't know what you could charge. I think my first website that I designed, and mind you, for those of you who remember what Macromedia Flash is, I designed a full Flash website for my first paying client. And I charged for it $250. It wasn't complicated. Well, it was to me, but it wasn't super complex website. However, it was fully Flash. So that means it's not a live text. It's not a live anything. It's all built out in Flash. When the client approached me and asked if I can do a website for him in Flash, I said, absolutely. How long will it take? It'll take me a month. How much will it be? I said $250. Looking back at it, it was such a dumb decision because I could have definitely charged a few $1,000s, if not more. But, it was the first and I didn't care. I just wanted to keep designing websites. And so I took his $250 and then I didn't share with the client. I had no fucking idea what Flash is. I really had no idea what that is. But I came home, I went online, and I started searching. What is Flash? And I bumped into Macromedia Flash software. And then I realized that Flash website is a more of a fluid animated website where everything moves fluidly. The things that we do today with CSS or JavaScript. But back in the day, HTML was very flat, was very dry. You click and you just wait for something to load. If it's just pure text, there's not a heavy visual, then you click and it just appears. Almost like, I don't know, flipping a page. And so people wanted more animated, interactive type websites, and these were built in Flash. Back in the day, when I learned what Flash is, I also got to know a company called Too Advanced. It was an inspiration for many years. The company I don't think exists anymore. It was an agency out of California. Anyway, so I said it's going to take me a month, and I spent 2 weeks learning how to use Flash every night or every given moment that I had. And then the next 2 weeks, I spent actually designing and building out the website. Sometimes relationships is something that are much more valuable than money. And I kind of try to educate this to a lot of people, not only designers, but in general, people in life. Building relationships is a lot more important than making a quick buck or skipping a company to go for the next company just because they pay you a little bit more. Integrity is, in my opinion, is a lot more important than $. Why I'm saying this is that guy that came to me and asked me for a website in Flash, and I said, I'm going to charge you $250, while I knew for a fact I could have charged him more. Well, later. But for me, it was a lot of money at the time. He ended up becoming my client for the next almost 7 years. And I went on redesigning his website, I think 6 times or 5 times. And so in the long run, I made tens of thousands of dollars with that client versus making it $2,000-$3,000 ahead of time. And then for him not to ever work with me again because I might have overcharged him and he could have not like it and whatnot. But because I was honest, because I was, saying that it's my first website and you're my first client, I was kind of upfront about these things. We went on building a relationship that lasted for years. This was the time where I basically spent most of my time learning how to be a web designer, picking up some clients and some projects, working on these projects, making mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes in creating and designing websites. Some of them were successful, some of them were not. But at the end of the day, I did not care. And I think the moral of this story, or the point of this story, is I was so passionate about being a web designer or designing websites that I truly did not care if I make money in it or not. I just wanted to design websites. I was absolutely okay to continue working at these low-paying jobs while they provided an option for me to still go out, find clients, design websites, and work on these projects and becoming a web designer. And I think that what paid off at the end of the day, because about 1.5 years or almost 2 later, I got my first break. I got a job from a consultancy to be their contract web designer. I didn't get a full-time job just yet, but as a contract web designer. And they sent my way, I think it was like a solid 15 or 20 or 30 different websites that I designed for them before I got my first full-time job at an agency. And then from there, I proceeded to, keep growing and building my skills, becoming better, I got my first web design award in, I think, 2005. It wasn't a fancy one. It wasn't something that is, notoriously famous or whatnot. But back in the day, at the beginning of the industry, even the smallest award recognition from some either local or national or even international group meant a lot, and it brought a lot with it. And so, yeah, that's why I think passion is such a vital part of being a designer, regardless of what kind of designer you are. Either you're web designer, motion designer, visual designer, graphic designer, illustrator, any kind of form of art or creative process or creative endeavor. I can't imagine how you can be in this field or profession without a true, pure, honest passion for it. And that's one of the problems that I've seen in our industry over the last probably 5, 6, 7, 8 plus years, is that I met a lot of people that got into this field for the wrong reasons. Every design manager, every company, every project wants to have a person that is truly passionate about what they do because they will produce amazing results. If you're not passionate about this, you will get good at it. At least in my opinion, at least from what I've noticed in my career, I have yet to find a designer that became really great and really good at what they do without ever having any kind of sort of passion for what they do. I think it just goes hand in hand. Maybe I'm naive, but I think we're doing this because we're passionate about this. And then obviously, the monetary part and the, career growth and options and opportunities are obviously a great plus. In addition to the fact that we found something we truly love to do and passionate about that also happened to pay well for it. That's what I mean when I talk about passion, is that I always like to hire people on my teams that are in it for the sake of being in it and not because they potentially might get a 6-figure salary or have a sexy title or work for a famous company. No, I always seeked out people that they just want to design shit. They just want to build great products. They just want to solve complicated, interesting problems. Not for the money, not for the fame, not for the recognition, but for the self-satisfaction. It is kind of a selfish, I guess, act, if you will, to look at this from the perspective of, I want to solve this problem because I know I can and because I truly want to. And not because, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get an award, I'm going to get recognition, I'm going to be on the cover of some magazine. I've been solving problems for the last 2 decades. I've been building things for the last 2 decades. I've always worked with companies that people typically don't know. I've always worked at agencies that people typically don't know of. I worked at startups that did not, or some of them or most of them did not become a multi-billion unicorn with a famous exit or an IPO that the media talks about. At least yet. But at the same time, I have worked on some of the most fascinating problems and projects across 3 different continents, 5 different countries. And I've launched well over 400 projects in my career. I worked with hundreds of different companies. I've seen so many different interesting industries, products, services, and so forth. And so for me, when I look back, I don't have Webbies. I don't have Cannes Lions. I don't have any of these things. I don't have this kind of massive recognition that some people in our industry do. And honestly, it's because I never cared for that. I never cared for being on the first or front page of some magazine or whatnot. It's nice, yes, when somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I'm going to talk about you. I'm going to write about you." It's flattering, of course. It's nice, but it was never a target. It was never something that I strived for. Equally with money, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. Money was never a factor for me. Just because somebody offered me more money, I'm not going to jump to a different company. Show me something more interesting. Show me something that will make me want to jump. Make me want to leave my current team and say that, sorry, but I have to go do this thing. Why? Because I feel like I have to. Because it's an opportunity I don't want to miss. But hilariously enough, every single time a company that reached out to me and said, "Hey, come work for us," in 90% of the time, those companies try to lure me with, we're going to give you a bigger title and more money. And my response was, thank you, but I don't care. I measure my wealth based on experiences, knowledge, and expertise that I have gained over the years. My wealth lies in my talent, my abilities, and my experience. That's it. Not in the number in my bank account. Be passionate about what you do. Doesn't matter how successful you are right now. Doesn't matter how well off you are right now. If you are truly passionate about what you do, it doesn't matter what it is. You're a designer, you're a photographer, you're a creator, you're a YouTuber, filmmaker, you're a truck driver, you're cleaning streets, it doesn't matter. As long as you truly enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate about it, I can almost guarantee you that you will become successful at it. It might take some time. It might take longer than you wanted to or expected to, but you will arrive at your destination. And here we are at the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening and spending that time with me on this episode. Now, I do want to mention that everything that has been said, it is my opinion and my opinion only. It does not represent any companies, entities, persons, and whatnot that I have worked with before, currently, or in the future. It's only my opinions. Once again, I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing or hearing or talking to all of you in the future. If you have any questions or you want me to cover any specific topic or any specific subject, please find me on LinkedIn, reach out, send me a message. And I would really appreciate to get some sort of a review or feedback of how you like this podcast or this specific episode. If there is anything you don't like, you like, please just share with me so I can learn and make this experience a lot better, because this is a project for me. And so, thank you once again. And on that note, never stop learning, and I'll see you all next time.